Today, you're going to talk about trends, how trends can help companies to innovate, or trend-based innovation, trend-driven innovation. And I'm quite curious to know more about this important topic, but in particular, how organizations, I think Starbucks and other relevant brands are using this type of approach and method, okay, to be able to future-proof their organization, their business model, products and services. Because at the same time, I also struggle, and we were talking about this, to find people that understand how the corporate innovation world works. Because we were talking about this, project management is quite mature, even software development is quite mature. But when you talk about corporate innovation, there's still a big problem of lack of understanding and probably education of how these things work together, how we articulate this type of methodologies to create and add value. But I think I'm not the right person to talk about this now. Nathania, thank you very much for accepting my invite. I know it's 4 p.m. probably in Singapore. You want to walk home and you are still here. So thanks very much. And over to you.
Okay, my pleasure. Thanks, Hugo. It's lovely to be connected to you and to be part of the Innovation Cafe community. And it's amazing what you're doing only since April, and it's already, how many, 200 people now?
250 at the moment inside our Slack channel, and I'm really amazed with YouTube because I'm not a YouTuber at all, and we have around 150 followers. Mm-hmm. Actually, a famous CEO from an innovation management platform called me a few days ago, and he was like, "Hey man, probably spending just the cost of the Zoom account. You have more followers than me, and I'm spending a lot with marketing. So what's the secret?" And I was like, "No secret, just do it. Just go online."
Yeah, and it's a good timing as well. Everyone is now online. It's the trend right now.
True.
Yeah, and it's a good concept too, making it more like a cafe, peer-to-peer versus like a top-down presentation. Yeah, so maybe I'll just share my screen first. I know I have 20 minutes, and then afterwards we're gonna have some Q&A. Okay, let me then share my screen. Sorry. Okay, perfect. So, hi everyone, my name is Nathania Christy. I'm the head of Academy at Trend Watching. We are a consumer trends firm based in Amsterdam, founded in 2002. So now it's almost 2 decades. I myself, I'm based in Singapore, where we oversee the whole APAC market. We also have teams in New York, in Berlin, and London, and in Amsterdam as well. So in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to give you an introduction of trend-driven innovation and what our methodology is all about and how does it relate to innovation. And I usually have an hour to share more about trends, but just think of this as like what Hugo mentioned, a cafe, a talk, and then we're just going to move from there after the 20 minutes and then see what we're going to discuss more into. Like I said, at Trend Watching, we are obsessed about consumer trends. We want to know where consumers are headed next, but our approach is quite counterintuitive when you compare us to different market research firms or consumer trends firms out there. And I always begin my presentation by saying the world is changing, but now it's a bit obvious when we look at the context of COVID-19. And in fact, I don't typically quote Vladimir Lenin, but this is what he said. There are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happens. And we've seen that with COVID-19, we've seen how even executives are mentioning the word unprecedented in earnings call, and it's totally unprecedented, the number you can see from the graph. And we saw how with COVID-19, economic activities are halted. And it brings some good benefit, like a better environment when it comes to air pollution. This is in India. We saw how millions are now domesticated. They totally changed their lifestyle. Everyone's making dalgona coffee right now. And businesses are pivoting as well. This animal sanctuary, they actually offer a drop-in goat to Zoom calls. And this is this might be what you're thinking right now. You've got to be kidding me. But a lot of interesting are happening when we look at consumer world. And how a lot of things are now accelerated. They're all changing because of COVID-19 and many other changes happening out there. And when we look at change, things might feel very uncertain for you. There's new behavior and you try to make sense of how things are, and it's so overwhelming, but we are here to assure you that, you know, you don't need to feel overwhelmed, because yes, the world is changing so much on one hand, and everything across all spheres, politics, economic, technology, society, they're all changing. But on the other hand, we are the same old humans with the same old human needs. And this is a powerful truth that we can hold on to try to make sense of change, and then later on innovate based on our understanding of trends. And when we look at our basic needs, they don't change, although, well, maybe we now see that there's some recent addition to our fundamental change. But this is where things get interesting, because when we look at change, when those changes outside, they bump against our core human needs, there is tension. And that's why we look at innovation as our unit of analysis, innovations across market, across region, across type. So whether it's a vision innovation or a business model innovation or a product innovation. Because the thing about innovation is that great innovation, they resolve that tension between how the world is changing and our core needs that don't change, and they create new expectations. And so that is our answer when people ask us, how would you know where consumers are headed? What will my consumers want next? We rely on innovations. We analyze innovation to help professionals then launch their own innovation. And the reason why we don't ask consumers, but we watch business innovation, is because yes, customer centricity is important, but if you look back, even during the days of Henry Ford, if you were to ask consumers what do they want, they would say, we want faster horses, and there would be no cars. If we look at Steve Jobs, the leaders who are very visionary, he said that our task is to read things that are not yet on the page, because people don't know what they want until you actually give it to them. And so that's kind of our counterintuitive secret to understand and anticipate what people will want next. And we say, watch business innovation first, because collectively great innovation tell us where consumers are currently lavishing their attention on. And after you get an understanding of innovation, business innovation, then you can ask your consumers to dig deeper into their motives, their deep desires and needs. So if I were to kind of summarize everything that I just said in a simple diagram, if you forget everything else, you can just take a screenshot of this slide. And it's basically saying that on one hand, the world is changing all the time. And the pace of that change can be accelerating. But to get a handle, to make sense of things, remember that on the other hand, we are the same old humans with the same old human needs. You can think about the needs for convenience, the need for belonging, the need for positive impact. And the tension that I talked to you about earlier is that expectation gap at the top. People, consumers, they want to satisfy their needs in new ways, taking into account drivers of change. And when you want to create innovation that addresses that gap, then you hit the sweet spot, because you are taking into account how the world is changing, but also the core needs that don't change year on year. But if you see the other side of it, if you want to create an innovation and all you think about is the latest technology, everyone's using AR, VR, for example, or you only care about a certain changes, maybe not technology, maybe society, maybe you look at some of the fads that are happening. And if you create change and you forget people's needs, what you're creating are novelties on the right side. Or on the other extreme, if you want to launch new innovation, and you think about people's basic needs. I want to satisfy people's need for convenience, for example. But you forget that the world is changing. You forget that there are new technologies or new ways to satisfy those needs. Then what you're creating are more of the same So this is the thing that kind of anchors our thinking, our methodology at trend watching, and how you can create innovation that hit the sweet spot. And so everything that we're talking is based on this book that were written by our colleagues. It's called The Trend-Driven Innovation, if you're interested to understand more. But of course, when we talk about trends, there's a lot of definition. People can think differently when they think about trends. And of course, there's no right or wrong answer, but the way we define trends, when we're talking about trends, we don't mean fashion trends. We're not going to be able to tell you what's the latest color that's going to be popular among people, maybe for fall or for certain seasons. When we talk about trends, we're also not talking about numbers because we're more qualitative. We want to dig deeper into what certain numbers tell you. So it's more than just data. It's more than just technology. Technology to us, it's a driver of change, and it informs and it influences the way people behave, but that's not the only thing that we'll look at. It's also not fads. If you know, these are the Jonas Brothers and they're using the Face app. There was once a fad some time ago. So we'll look, so fads come and go, but trends, they emerge and evolve. So we're interested in really understanding underneath the surface, underneath all these fads, why are people behaving this way, and how can you unlock innovation opportunities through these trends. So our definition then of a consumer trend is a new manifestation among people of a fundamental human needs, wants, or desires. And it kind of summarizes what I just said earlier. And it's very simple, and you can really think of it very simply as look at innovation, because they're new innovations, they satisfy our basic needs in new ways. So look at those new manifestations, look at the patterns among those different innovations to really understand consumer trends. And why tracking trends is useful, because it will help you not only meet, but also surpass customers' rapidly changing expectations. So expectations is the key word that we keep on hammering again and again, and it's all about consumers' expectation. But the thing about expectation is that if, say, you're in FMCG or you're in hospitality and you only look at trends in your industry, it's not enough, because once an expectation is created from the consumer side, those expectations will get transferred across region, across demographic groups, across industry. And if we take a look, for example, now it's very well known, Instagram, this innovation that allows you to express yourself in a new way. And if we take a look at this expectation to be able to express yourself really online, it gets transferred across, and businesses across industry, they would have to respond to that change in that in expectation. So F&B are being reimagined. Now your food needs to be colorful, needs to be Instagrammable. It reimagined travel as well. Now people want to go to places where it's easily shareable in their Instagram feed, even though maybe the reality is different than their expectation. It also reimagined industries, even the more boring ones, like packaging, for example. Now, what you see on the screen is a packaging that is printed in reverse, so that when you take mirror selfies, the photos will look perfect, so you can express yourself. And different industries are affected in this way. Games are now becoming grammable as well. You can take a selfie as Spider-Man in the game, and then you can share it easily on Instagram. And so that's how, and that's why when you watch innovation, no matter which industry you come from, it's important to just keep your eyes open and to watch innovation across different sectors. You can think about it in terms of the expectation transfer, but you can also think about it in terms of the ripple effect. So if we take a look at this innovation, this is the e-scooter. It was a craze some time ago in a lot of major cities. And we saw how it could potentially impact property prices, because, for example, before e-scooter, those property that are expensive are those that are located in the city center. But maybe now with e-scooter, it's more accessible. You have your own mode of transport. Areas that are more rural, the price can also be more competitive. It could affect even retail traffic because now if the place are maybe 10 minutes away, you can just grab your e-scooter instead of ordering things online. It's more expensive, the delivery fee. It could even impact raw materials, and countries like Bolivia, for example, whose main source of GDP is in producing lithium batteries, and lithium is a component that is really needed in e-scooter. Maybe it could even affect insurance premiums. So you see how the different industries could be impacted through ripple effects because of innovations that are arising from different industries. And what I'm really trying to say, the point is that consumers, they live in an expectation economy, and that's why your competitors are the best in class, whoever they may be. So if you're looking at the way Spotify does its personalization and how Spotify really knows me, for example, my taste, I could ask the same of another brand, like how come, I don't know, maybe Airbnb, why can't they personalize things for me like how Spotify does it? And so because consumers, they live in an expectation economy, it's very important to watch innovations, to watch trends, even though they are outside of your industry, and then try to bring it back to your organization, try to think more about trends before you even start your innovation journey. When we talk about trends, there's a lot of different innovations. There's a lot of different trends. How do we make sense? How do we categorize and track trends? Just to give you a kind of teaser into how we work at trend watching, we categorize trends into mega trends, and these are slow moving currents. They don't change year on year, and they're wired in, so half of it is kind of wired in our internal needs as humans, and the other half of it is related to external factors. And as we scan for different innovation, because remember that's our unit of analysis, as we scan innovation, we try to analyze it with our team. We come up with the trends. We will categorize those different trends under this 16 mega trends that you're seeing. And for some organization, certain mega trends would make more sense for them than other mega trends. So we will also help, and it's also good for you as an organization when you watch trends, kind of try to see for yourself which of the trends are more relevant to you that you need to be paying more attention to. So for example, if we just take one example at one of the mega trend called status seekers, and it's all about the never-ending pursuit of status. And a lot of the things that we do, how we consume, it's all very much tied to status. And if we track the evolution of status, for example, it used to be all about fancy physical things like expensive bags, expensive fashion items, luxury cars. But then this happened, it gets democratized, and therefore status gets diversified. Everyone, as their income rises, they get access to more and more expensive things. So then we saw how status, they evolve from material things to post-material things like experiences. And now increasingly the trend that we're seeing is that people are now trying to satisfy their needs for status in virtual worlds, and virtual worlds are gaining more and more meaning even, and it's getting even more real. So what you see here is an innovation from Getty Museum. They partner with Animal Crossing, and basically now you can decorate virtual spaces with famous artworks from famous painters. And these spaces are increasingly becoming a very important space for a lot of consumers to interact. And although I talk a lot about trends, the truth is watching trends is not enough, because you need to go beyond just watching and observing trends to actually applying it if you want to start your innovation journey. Because if you look at trends, it's a lot like a kid in a candy store. It's fun, it's exciting, a lot of innovations, but it can be overwhelming and you don't know which one to choose as well. So the trend-driven innovation methodology, it's really anchored in the diagram that I showed you earlier about observing people's basic needs and drivers of change and innovation and trying to analyze that. But when it comes to journey wise, this is how it will look like. We start with scanning and trying to understand what are the emerging trends. And then in an organization, then you would ideally focus on a few trends that would really shape your strategy, and then take that to then begin ideating whatever innovation methods that you are following, you are more inclined to use, then use trends as a starting point, and then start generating innovation ideas, then validating it, prototyping it, depending on the innovation models that you want. And the last bit of it is to really embed this trend thinking culture to really spark a lot more ideas when it comes to building and generating innovation in your organization. And we also have different tools that I'll be happy to share with you. It's also available online. So we have Consumer Trend Radar, which is a canvas to kind of help you plot which mega trend, which themes would be more relevant to your business so that you can focus in your trend scanning. And also a consumer trend canvas where you more specifically take one trend and really tear it apart, really understand what these trends mean, what are the expectations, and then therefore launch an innovation idea based on that trend. So really, to kind of like summarize my sharing today, it's crucial for you and your organization to start your innovation journey that is anchored in an understanding of trends, because that would guide and inform you of what your customers will then want in the future, so that your innovation would hit the sweet spot, like what I explained earlier. So yeah, I hope I stick to the 20 minutes time, and happy innovating. Would love to talk more and discuss more. And if there's any questions, feel free to share. Let me just stop sharing my screen first. All right.
All right, congratulations. Thank you very much. Well done. It's early in the morning here in London, and I feel like I went to university and I learned so many things. Yeah, not just about the importance of trends and analyzing, but actually those trends that you were talking about Animal Crossing, and there's a case study. I think someone got married inside of Animal Crossing, right? During the
that's actually in Singapore, in Sentosa Island. So Sentosa Island is an island in Singapore, and because it cannot be open during this pandemic season, they actually replicate the entire island in Animal Crossing, and then they offer some people to get married inside Animal Crossing in Sentosa.
Very good, thank you. Guys, feel free to unmute, ask questions. I think you have many. It's such a sound, powerful presentation. Eric, you want to start?
I can go first. Hey, hi. Thanks for the lovely presentation. So I was born in Singapore. Definitely looking forward to go to Sentosa to see the virtual land. I heard also this yesterday. There was this guy. He lost his job, and the innovative idea was for him to provide I know it sounds a bit morbid, literally. A lot of folks couldn't visit their loved ones, at the graveyards, right? So he created a digital platform, to help people clean the graves, put the flowers, take the pictures, load it online for a service. So, there are many interesting things happening. But question to you from my end, it's you covering Southeast Asia for quite a bit of time now, presumably. If I were to ask like a flip side question around, what are the segments or industries that are still highly locked into the analog world? So there are some industries that are quite staunch in the way they do, the old traditional ways of business. And how much do you think, is the kind of companies, in that kind of state still, in the Southeast Asian market, meaning that they're still very, locked into the old ways of doing things. They're not planning a lot of innovation. They're still happy with their traditional bricks and mortars business. I mean, is this something that you see quite prevalent in the Southeast Asian market right now still? Or are you seeing a more buoyant market where people are going, head over heels around the trends, around the transformation work that needs to happen? I mean, what is the feel or the temperature in the region right now? That's my 2 cents question.
Thank you. That's a good question. Of course, it's always a mix, and it depends on a few factors. So if we look at the small businesses in Southeast Asia being mostly developing countries in the region, it's really hard for them to undergo digital transformation because of the lack of capital. But in general, I would say that Southeast Asia is transforming digitally, and it's largely thanks to a lot of capital that's being injected from China as well. We see how the rise of different startups in Southeast Asia, they receive a lot of funding from the likes of Alibaba and JD.com. And indeed, it's their vision from China, the different giants there. They want to enter Southeast Asia, and there's a lot of people who are saying that Southeast Asia are just 5 years behind China, and a lot of innovations, you sort of see some innovations popping up from Southeast Asia, and then you would think, oh, that's actually been done. There's like a mirror innovation in China a few years back. So definitely the trend is to move towards digital. But of course, there's also an imbalance when it comes to the different countries. Like, we're here in Singapore, and the government is really at the forefront of digital transformation, and the government does a lot of reskilling and upskilling with the workforce as well, so that kind of fuels the growth as well. But if you see countries like Indonesia, it's less government-backed, but more because of the injection from China to big companies like Gojek and Tokopedia and all that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good to know. I mean, maybe in the future we might have further chats and discussions around specifically based on your research in the marketplace, companies that fit into that category of still inertia, where they are still fighting the digital trends. And at the same time, those companies, I think, will need both trend setting and also, transformational capabilities, and they also need capital. I think the kind of combination mix that would help propel them, faster into the future and make them more relevant. So I'll try to reach out to you offline to find out, how we can collaborate in those spaces going forward. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are you based
in Singapore as well?
No, I'm actually based out in London, but I'm very interested in the Southeast Asian market, considering the fact that the US and China trade routes are currently being hampered to a certain extent. I think the natural pivot over the years have been such that China has always been been backing a lot of the Southeast Asian markets. Yeah. So henceforth, with your commentary around Southeast Asia and external investments pouring in, from China, I think going forward is about choosing the laggards, more precisely. Some will die off, but I think choosing the right ones to work together, on both trends, capital, and also transformation is where I see the more major opportunities popping up in the future horizon. So thank you very much. I'll reach out to you separately, but I would say fantastic presentation, and I really appreciate Hugo for doing this. It makes it so much more I would say comfy, especially it's in a cafe setting. The only thing is that he just dressed up like a Starbucks barrister. That's the thing.
I need to upgrade that. We have another question here, and thanks, Fabian. There are so many trend reports online, but how can an entry-level marketeer start spotting trends by himself?
That's a good question. An entry-level marketer starts spotting trends. I would say just read a lot. Read a lot. Ask the right questions, because I think now we live in an economy and in an age and time where everything is an overwhelm, it's more noise. So then how do you go from noise to really insights? Then that's where the curation part comes in. So you can, as you read innovations out there, you can ask yourself along the framework that I shared earlier, like what are the basic needs that underpins this innovation? What are some of the drivers of change that kind of play a part? And then therefore, what are some of the emerging expectation? And then you can start to even map it to the trend framework, the 16 mega trends that I shared earlier. Or if you're working with a certain client and they already have their focus areas, then you can just map it accordingly to their focus areas.
Okay, and another question I want to ask is that there are always two, models for trend consultancy firm. For one is that you have a consultancy firm or an innovation lab, and and you consult the clients, and and then develop a product or incubate a product, right? And the second approach is that the company has in-house team for product development and for insights. So according to you, what model is good? Like, if do you think the crowdsourcing the company is doing right now, throwing competitions on public forums for different innovations is right, or they should rely on in-house team?
I think there are pros and cons to both aspect, and we from trend watching, and at least from my experience, we come from the agency point of view, and we're not really like in-house team of a corporate innovation side. And so we work a lot with corporates want to be more innovative, and we try to align our mega trends with their own focus areas. And some of those have worked really well in the past if the engagement is more long-term. But if it's more one-off, then it's really hard to kind of build the culture internally. Then that's where I would say investing in an in-house team would have more returns, because of just the longevity and just the consistency, and just even the different terms that you're using. What do certain things mean? How does it align with our organization? So I think it really depends, but maybe I can also take the time to just hear from the others here if there are people here who are corporate innovators too, more from the corporate side.
I just have an add-on to that as well. I suppose it's a similar question. It's just that some of the tools which you've mentioned and approaches to this work, are they also in the book which you showed us?
Yes, yeah. So it's in the trend-driven innovation book.
Right, excellent. Okay, that's a good starting point as well. Thank you.
Well, I got a weird one though, because sometimes I'm just horrible at catching trends and all that. I don't choose to be like going for the trend, but I just choose to be a super fast follower, and just to find out who is fast, and I'll just try to catch up. So for me, sometimes it's not about really spotting that gold nugget. For me, sometimes, if the market share is big enough, I'm more than happy to be a good second and third place follower, just to be, riding the wave sometimes, in my view.
Yeah, that's a good point, Fabian. I mean, sometimes it can be a bigger market after the kind of maverick stage, that can be sometimes difficult to...
Yeah, I mean, it saves a lot of time, money, to buy reports and everything else, to read trends. When someone has chosen, a path for you, it's just, riding faster behind and catching up, and later on to be looking at the overtaking stage. So that is a strategy in my view. I know it's very hard to catch the right trend and the right wave. So henceforth, just now when I said, if you have the right kind of capital, the right kind of understanding of the trend and who is ahead of you, and also understanding the transformational needs or the capabilities that you need to transform going forward, I think it's really quite tactical. Sometimes, if you play in this space, and markets are moving so fast. So today's trend could be good, but again, it really depends how fast you're able to catch up to it.
Yeah, and I would say localization is a big theme as well. Sometimes it's not about just being the first, but also being the first one who are able to localize the right way when it comes to certain markets that are more nuanced in their culture, their lifestyle, especially in Southeast Asia.
Well, Grab is a good example versus Uber, right? The classic case.
Yeah.
I'm curious about what is the right setup or the typical setup for a medium to large organization to work with you guys. Okay, so I guess trend watching, you guys can identify and spot trends. Okay, but then if I work in an organization, what type of team do I need? How can I plug those trends to my innovation system? Because what happens many times is that, and I've seen this before, companies pay to trend watching or Gartner or, you know, they have access to reports in webinars, okay? But then there's no process to translate that into ideas and experiments and in pivots.
Yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting question, because even though we do produce reports, most of our engagements are actually more offline. So I mean, now it's all online, but it's more via workshops, via different engagements. And so for example, there's a client who already has their own trend framework. And then we would work with them for, so we come in, we consult with them, we kind of map their own framework to our own, and then we do like a 2-day workshop with their managers in the innovation team. And then with some other clients, we do what we call a trend safari. So it's really just helping them to kind of see beyond their day-to-day job. And we would bring them to different places to just kind of be able to see it for themselves and really let them understand this is the process of scanning and putting innovations into a trend framework, so that subsequently they can do it on their own as well. So it goes beyond just giving you the information, these are the trends, to, okay, we're gonna work with you, we are your extended innovation team. When it comes to the structure, it's usually either an innovation team, and then you would have like a champion in that team who would really liaise with us, or it could also be sometimes we work with the L&D person as well, and they would train certain cross-functional like mid-managers to be able to then cascade it down to their team. And if it's more specific towards, say, new product development, then we would work with the specific marketing and research team as well.
Is there any correlation of working with you guys in return on investment?
So because we work on the very early stage, and it's a lot more related to ideation and just really scanning and then focusing and then producing the early ideas, we don't really journey with them up to implementation. And so it's often the feedback that we get, it's more qualitative. It's more about, oh, it's really important for our employees to be able to open their eyes, enlarge their perspective. And so it's been positive, but we don't really quantify the ROI, if you would. But yeah.
All right, guys, any more questions? Feel free to unmute. Don't be shy. Eloy, are you still here?
Yeah, I'll just pitch in. There's Manu here. Yeah. Hi, Nathania.
Hello.
I just wondering, you know, the recent crisis, a lot of peculiar things that happened. You have a lot of people in the business community wondering whether it's a trend, because we don't know what's there to stay, what's you know, what's probably going to change, and what are the things that'll probably roll back to normal. So under these circumstances, the professionals are wondering what is a trend, if anything that happened counts as a trend at all, and the companies are wondering, you know, whether anything is worth picking up to innovate, or by the time the innovation is complete, if things roll back to what it probably was sometime back. So under these circumstances, what actually counts as a trend, and what kind of, how do you even call for innovation?
And this circumstance, you mean the whole COVID-19? Yeah. So it's sometimes when we look at trends as also specific to the clients, because certain trends, it may stick for a certain industry, but not for the other industry. And we also look at, for example, virtual experience economy. It's a big thing. And we see how a lot of artists like Travis Scott, for example, they're doing now concerts in Fortnite. So if you're in music, how important is this trend? Should you invest in it? Because then the investment requires a lot of money. So we also sometimes work with clients in that way, specific to their needs, then we would dig deeper. But in general, we would, and when it's more general, we talk about it in terms of fads versus trends. So fads, they come and go, but trends, they emerge and evolve. Then we would assess this particular happening, maybe like working from home. Is it a fad or is it a trend? And how sticky is this behavior? You could also refer to a lot of other, they're not from trend watching, but there's a lot of other trend theories and frameworks that you could use, like the BJ Fogg behavior model, to kind of assess how sticky a behavior is. And you could also look at whether government regulations kind of trumps people's behavior in this case, like working from home. There's like certain long-term investment and real estate contracts that would need to be set in place. So then maybe people will come back to the office before this has taken place. So you could analyze it on that levels, but that's beyond actually what trend watching does. We inform clients of the trends, and then they could engage other professionals to kind of then process it in a deeper way.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one question here. Is your organization connected with innovation management platforms such as Itonics, Bright Idea, Q Markets? Because these platforms, they manage the innovation funnel. So somehow is your product connected with these platforms or not?
No, actually, no, I've not heard of this. I guess maybe because it's more like very innovation focused, and we kind of straddle between trends and innovation. And innovation is kind of more like our unit of analysis in the trends world. But that's good to know. I'll look it up.
Here's an idea. Here's an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about AI, artificial intelligence, for trend spotting? Can I start using AI to spot the next big thing?
We actually kind of use AI to help speed up our trend scanning process, but the curation itself, we still rely on our in-house analysts because it's very qualitative. So then there's a lot of nuances that AI can't pick up, and it's helpful because our team is kind of spread across the world. We're very diverse as well. Then we're able to kind of tear apart and discuss certain innovations and see how does this look like in APAC? How does this look like in South and Central America, for example? So far, we're not replaceable by AI yet, thankfully.
Mm-hmm. I got a last question from my side. Sorry, I know you've been asking a lot. It's Fabian again. So I'm going to ask a naughty question. So if I asked you a question around, let's say, retail in Southeast Asia, you guys will be able to tell me what would be the key trends in the retail consumer market, for example, the insights perspective, right? Presumably.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a tricky question because we have a lot of industry-specific clients who want industry-specific trends, and we are actually cross-industry, and we focus on the consumer. So we would be able to tell you key trends that are impacting retail in Southeast Asia, but not retail trends.
Okay, all right. So that's good. All right, if you have that set of data, so that's data set number one. If I ask you the next question, which is around, would you know the companies that are within those sectors that are not on trend, but could be on trend? Would you be able to tell me that?
Yes and no. So we track innovations, and obviously those innovations that are setting new expectations, they come from certain companies. So we could, so we have a trend intelligence platform, and we could sort of see in APAC who are setting the trend when it comes to this particular trend. We would see the different companies. So if you don't see that company, then you could then read more into why they're not doing that, but it's not that.
No, it's a very, very interesting question, because if you can see the companies that are innovating in the front, then it's about understanding who is actually lagging behind. And I'm just saying that if you know who is in front, would you also have the set of data to say, all right, ABC company is trend setting, innovative, they're doing all the good things, right things. But actually, there are another 20 clients or 20 similar companies that are lagging behind by a mile. I mean, I'm interested to understand who are the 20, who are the 15. Yeah.
That's an interesting take, but we don't quantify the different companies, though we talk a lot about specific more companies
but
than
that
others.
is how you will be selling your services, right? Which is, you know who is in front, then you need to be selling your services to the 50, to the 20, right? That's how it sell naturally, right? So
I should send this recording to our sales team.
Yeah, so please make sure that the IP is fully, you know, the idea is mine. I don't mind taking a cut out of it.
Just very quickly, the thing I was talking about, it's another idea to send to your product team, because I'm an innovation manager, so I use innovation management platforms. And the key feature is enabling or allowing employees to submit an idea. Here's an idea to do X, Y, and Z. And the best thing I've seen so far is when I'm adding an idea, okay, there's an intelligent search that will go to the database and try to find a similar idea inside my organization. So imagine an employee is going to be like, why don't we become the Airbnb of experiences? If there's a similar idea, it will pop up on the right. But if we connect this innovation management platform with TrendWatch, okay, with your organization, it can scan the world instead just of inside that organization. Here's another idea for your product.
Yeah, Hugo, I mean, to that point, I don't mind if we plug in our platform into Trendsetter. I mean, you know, if Trendsetter is interested to collaborate with us, I mean, I'm more than happy to have that conversation with them as well. I think it will be a nice service to plug in with your AI intelligence platform, isn't it, right?
This is the problem
is that what you
inviting innovation manager.
Yeah. I'm trying to offer you. I'm also trying to offer you something that I think is not seen, prevalently in Asia, whereby someone has got a good innovative idea. You think it's good. You love it. You are so entrenched in it. But in actual fact, when you do when you come onto, Hugo's platform, it just tells you, hey, unfortunately, 15 people from Brazil through Botswana, they've tried it, and the learnings are X, Y, and Z. And instead of spending 15,000 on that MVP, you can actually learn, and actually you need to only improve on, with 2,000 quid. So I'm saying that could be something useful on top of Trendsetter.
I need to look into what you guys are doing more.
No worries. We'll hold a private session for you.
Eric and Eloy. I guess it's Eric now.
Yeah, I've been quiet because I think I find it really insightful, and I'm sitting in a sector that's probably as far as you can get from trend setting or trend watching.
What is that? What sector?
I'm in the crisis response sector, so we're at the moment looking at the biggest crisis the world has faced, and so I work for an organization called Translators Without Borders. So we really we're trying to innovate into the language and the information kind of distribution in the remote place where people find the hard to reach places and communities. So I was wondering, actually, have you ever done kind of trend watching or trend, like looking at trends in the humanitarian sector, using those frameworks, or is it something that has been done before? I'm really curious. I could see potential, but I don't think it, like, as a sector, I don't think it's a sector that has looked at how, as a whole, the humanitarian response is done around the world for different crises. So
we actually, so at Trend Watching, we cover 16 different industries, and nonprofit is one of the industries that we track. And you'd be surprised, there's actually a lot of very innovative, simple idea, because sometimes they don't have a lot of money, but just the thinking behind it is very fresh. We also have certain trends that are more related to how a brand, so more from a brand perspective, how a brand can respond to crisis. And so it would be interesting for maybe you to also see the different innovations to just take inspiration from. So we do cover, and we do cross path with those kind of innovations. I'd be curious to learn more about what you're doing.
Yeah, I'll connect with you. I'd be curious to kind of continue that discussion, because I'm really curious to see what, like, how the humanitarian sector look at trends, and how can they use it to better respond to crisis, maybe, or to have a product that is innovative and help the rest of the sector to kind of respond to crisis. And
Eloy, are you still on?
I am on. I've been. It's an amazing presentation, Nathania. Thank you. I've been like Eric. It's all very fresh and a lot of information to digest, but a very interesting platform. I will be investigating it further. Definitely. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll connect after.
We just take 10%, okay? That's it. You guys work together. Just kidding.
Then we shouldn't publish this on your YouTube. Maybe we shouldn't.
Sorry, 20%. I said 20%.
It's the connection fee, is it?
Connection fee. Yeah. To pay the bills, you know, the lattes and Americanos here in the cafe. I'm just the barista here. Guys, any more questions? I think it's almost 5 p.m. right in Singapore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Time to go and enjoy the sun, enjoy the weather, or not. Sorry, it's not probably good weather now in Singapore. I don't know. All right, guys.
Lovely, actually.
It is
cool.
okay. Here in London, it's quite hot, so I really need to go and enjoy the sun as well. So guys, it was really, really exciting to host this session. Probably 20-25 questions. I was trying to take notes of all of these questions, which means the presentation was really good. So Nathania, thank you very much. If you want to go to our YouTube channel, you will find more innovation cafes with other topics. This one will be online as well. Feel free to invite friends to come here and participate as a speaker or as a participant. And yeah, thank you all. It was a pleasure, and enjoy your weekend if that's the case. Okay.
Thanks, Hugo.
It was a great way to start a Friday.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.
Always a pleasure to have you here as well.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye all. Thank you. Bye bye.
Have a good weekend. Bye. Bye.
Bye.